All right. Welcome back, everyone. It's been a great day so far. We're happy to present our next company. We have Lobe Sciences. It trades on the OTC Pink sheets under the symbol GTSIF and on the CSE under the symbol LOBE, and is engaged in drug research and development using psychedelic compounds and the development of innovative devices and delivery mechanisms to improve mental health and wellness. Joining us today is Phillip Young, CEO of Lobe. Welcome, Phillip.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the chance to tell our story to your investors, and I look forward to a healthy Q&A afterwards.
All right. Well, we look forward to your presentation whenever you're ready.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Well, as Anna said, Loeb is committed to developing therapeutics to help mental health and all aspects of mental health, whether it be straight mental health, such as depression and PTSD, or brain disorders from traumatic injury. So as we move forward, I would remind you that I'll be making some forward-looking statements and ask you access all of our CSE filings to get the latest on our disclosures. So as we move forward, I'd like to tell you a little bit about who we are at Loeb and what we're doing. We have a vision to develop and deliver solutions that improve the human condition. Across the board, we want to help people live healthier lives, and we believe we can do it starting with our focus on mild traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress syndrome. We want to develop the psychedelic therapeutics to treat patients at every stage of their disease, whether it be an acute stage or whether it be a chronic stage. We want to identify and develop transformative medicines that will work in tandem with each other or work by themselves. And we also want to ensure that we can deliver them safely and effectively so that the patients across the board will get better outcomes and live healthier lives. We're working initially in the field of mild traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress syndrome, studying a novel compound, NAC N-acetylcysteine, which has already been demonstrated with very good efficacy in the acute phase of TBI, and also combining that with psilocybin. And we also have other opportunities to move into other psychedelics, in addition to NAC and without NAC as solo products. We're working with the University of Miami, the Miller School of Medicine. I'll go into some more detail on that later. And also we're working with a great design company in Southern California called VisionWorks. VisionWorks is our partner as we move forward in developing a very, very innovative, novel nasal delivery device. We think one of the great ideas and one of the great opportunities is to deliver small dose psychedelic therapy intranasally so that we get direct transmission into the brain and it doesn't have to go through the first metabolism pass. Traumatic brain injury is a varied syndrome. Most people hear of concussions. That's what traumatic brain injury. You can have a mild concussion or severe concussion. And PTSD. PTSD is becoming a very, very common and problematic situation worldwide. And especially after COVID, we're seeing multiple percentage increases in patients and caregivers suffering from PTSD. It's been called brain fog. It's been called uneasiness, unsettledness. People don't sleep, continually stressed out. And that is hallmark symptoms of PTSD. So 10% of the population suffer from PTSD. The numbers are going to go much higher when we get the tabulations from the post-pandemic era. 8 million adults suffer from PTSD. The market opportunity is incredibly large, and the ability to do more and help more patients is incredibly humbling that we have the opportunity to do that. Just a portion of the $16 trillion market opportunity for PTSD alone, this is not including TBI, makes this probably one of the most valuable markets globally in the pharmaceutical sector. And we plan to take advantage of that by developing therapeutics that will help the patients improve, but also help them learn to live with it, and hopefully will eradicate it. Eventually, as we said, we want to make their lives better. Unfortunately, approximately 6% of the women alone suffer from PTSD, and only 2% of men. So clearly, the PTSD problem is more skewed towards women. We're learning more and more about that as time goes by, but clearly the focus needs to be to take care of the entire patient population, but we will focus on the women suffering from PTSD. Mild traumatic brain injury, which is a mild concussion of some sort. Those of you who have had concussions know that you can feel good the next day or you can feel poorly for months to years afterwards. And the problem with TBI, or concussive injury, is that there's no treatment effectively helping patients recover at all. The problem is doctors tell the patients to go home, relax, if they have headaches or they're sensitive to light, to stay in a dark room, to rest, maybe take some nonsteroidals or acetaminophen for the headaches that they get. Emphasize that sleeping is important and that everyone across the board is told by their physicians, they'll get better, you'll feel better. Well, the PTSD comes into this population when time after time they're told they're going to get better. They still suffer from headaches. They still suffer from dizziness. They still suffer from light sensitivity, inability to sleep, cognitive decline. And it goes on. And that can happen from a mild concussion. And as you saw, the numbers transmitting into PTSD, it is a huge problem globally, huge problem here in the United States and Canada. And it's something that we think we have a really, really good chance of treating and improving patients' outcomes. Let's back up a little bit and talk about psychedelics. Everyone hears about psychedelics, and you hear about magic mushrooms, you hear about LSD, MDMA, et cetera. But what do they come from? Where do they come from? Well, since they're naturally occurring, homeopathic remedies have been incorporating these for eons. Back to 5000 BC, it's been documented that people were using mushrooms for medicinal purposes. And as you can see through the slide deck, all the way up through 1904, when Franklin Summer Earle was the first person to collect psilocybin mushrooms. And then most recently, as we move into the current times, in 2019, multiple cities and even states now are decriminalizing psilocybin for recreational use. And then as late as 2020, Washington, D.C., the city voted to decriminalize psilocybin and other substances that have the ability to induce hallucinations and render psychedelic trips possible in the recreational area. The science is catching up. Major universities across the country and across the world are setting up dedicated psychedelic research centers to exploit the opportunity posed by these compounds. We have great relationships with our advisors, and some of them are the biggest names in psychedelics, and we'll be announcing soon relationships with other major advisors and universities. So psychedelics and NAC, what do we have? The key with a psychedelic of any kind, is it's a serotonergic, hallucinogenic. So everyone's familiar with the trip. You take, say, a large dose, 25 milligrams of psilocybin, and you go on a trip. You have a hallucinogenic experience for 4 to 8 hours, where it can greatly impact and improve your cognitive function. It's physiologically safe. And the key here, and this is really well misunderstood, I'll underscore that it's misunderstood. These compounds are not addictive. You can't become dependent on them. And if you abuse them the way you would abuse an opioid or something like that, you develop tolerance. So they stop working on you. So the key for us is to find the right dosing, which we believe we're on the track to doing, to deliver therapeutic benefit over time and allow the patients to dose and use the products in their own environment. As I mentioned earlier, we're doing a combination with N-acetylcysteine, or NAC. It's a dietary supplement originally used as an antidote to acetaminophen overdose. It's an antioxidant, and it reduces DNA damage. It's marketed and sold over the counter. It's known to be very safe, and it's known to have been used in millions and millions of patients. Our unique combination of that, in addition to psychedelics, the first one we're looking at is psilocybin, but we're also looking at MDMA, ecstasy, and other psychedelic compounds, because they all have different nuanced impacts on the brain. And what we want to do is maximize the opportunity to intervene therapeutically with the right compound for the right issue, the right disease, and the right trauma. We're doing this, and we've made tremendous progress. If you look at where Lobe is, when Lobe Sciences started as a psychedelic company just a few months ago, we've made tremendous progress. We've got multiple patents in the pipeline for microdosing applications intranasally with medical devices. We have also transduced the ability to use virtual reality in addition to the application of psychedelic and or NAC. It's becoming more and more as the literature catches up with the science. You're seeing that is a great opportunity for patients to really improve. PTSD patients suffering from severe depression and other mental illnesses can really improve with the guided help of virtual reality along with psychedelics. And as we approach the use of psilocybin along with NAC, we think we're going to have a really positive outcome for a lot of patients. So I mentioned this collaboration earlier, University of Miami. We have signed a pretty extensive engagement with the Miller School at University of Miami, doing the first of its kind research in the combination therapy of NAC and psilocybin in the rodent models of traumatic brain injury followed by PTSD. The models are very, very well validated in the literature as well as at the University of Miami. They're experts at these models. And unfortunately, due to the pandemic, which is causing so many people post-pandemic PTSD, this study was late in getting off the ground, but is up and running full force now. Dr. Michael Hoffer, the lead in this study, is advancing the animal work very quickly. And we hope to have the data available to us early second half of this year. And we believe we'll be able to demonstrate that our combination is not only safe in the animal models, which is very important, but also is effective. So the way the validated models work is the rats are exposed to a brain trauma. I won't go into the details of how they do it, but it's very ethical and humane. And then they're exposed to a very well-known model of PTSD. They're being dosed with our compounds alone and in combination so that we can have a full data set which to compare against each other and demonstrate, we believe, efficacy, but also allow us to go to the FDA with data to initiate the IND and our first clinical studies under an IND. But importantly, what we want to do is deliver something to the patients so that they have the ability to dose and treat and take care of themselves where they work and live. And that's why we think a nasal delivery device is going to be key in this marketplace as it expands. We're in the very, very early infancy of the psychedelic market. It's going to be tremendously large, as you saw by the potential $1 trillion worth of revenue. But also we have to understand that we need to give therapeutic options where they work and live. And I think it's an important aspect for patients as they are diagnosed and as initially treated. I think the virtual reality opportunity in a guided setting with a therapeutic dose of a psychedelic along with NAC may have a very good position there so that we can get the patients kind of kickstarted and get them moving but towards health. But as we move forward, I think dosing them and treating them at home, and we believe that it's going to work that way, that they'll be able to use this intranasal device. They'll be able to dose microdoses at home via absorption through the olfactory bulb at the back of the sinus cavity, get direct absorption into the brain. And that's obviously where it works. So we've worked with VisionWorks, I mentioned earlier. We've gone through the first stage of development and discovery. We've built a platform, demonstrated the ability to deliver a targeted spray with the right droplet size to the right distance back from the application site. Next steps are going to be to shrink that down, make a working prototype model, and then move that forward into clinical studies. An important component of how Loeb came about was that in the predecessor company, Green Star, there was a cannabis company and had a very nice cannabis asset, a fully functional farm and commercial operation in Cowlitz County, Washington State. And on March of this year, we divested the entire Cowlitz asset to a multi-state international operator called Ionic Brands. It was a great opportunity for the company. We strengthened our balance sheet with $1.75 million. We received over 100 million shares of non-voting preferred stock, and that will allow us to sell those shares starting in a few months with a potential value to the company of upwards of 20 to 45 million. Claris came out with an analyst report on Ionic after this transaction and put a target price of 45 cents on the company. Simple math, 100 million shares times 45 cents is a tremendous non-dilutive financial windfall for the company. Starting the later part of this year and into next year, we can access that when we want. In addition, there's 4 million 5-year warrants of Ionic Brands at 30 cents, which we can also monetize and add more cash non-dilutively to our balance sheet. And we're excited about the opportunity that brings the company to allow our sole focus to be developing psychedelic therapeutics for the human condition. And we believe that non-dilutive financing available to us later this year and into next year, et cetera, will really strengthen our company and allow us to move all of our plans forward. So I mentioned Miami and our great collaboration with Dr. Hoffer and his entire team at the Miller School. We've also announced recently several really interesting collaborations. Pro football legends, we're very excited to be partnering with them. They have a very strong interest in TBI, or concussions as they call them in the NFL, and treating the long-term consequences. You've heard stories about former NFL players and they're degrading into very serious health conditions due to recurrent concussions or recurrent trauma. We're looking forward to partnering and moving forward with them. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll be announcing some other really strong partnerships that will allow us to strengthen our mission and develop and move products forward that will help patients. Where are we on our development timeline? As you can see here, the nasal device development is moving forward. We're refining the test now, and we'll be going into production and prototype design later this year. Miami, as I mentioned, had a problem starting up because the labs were closed down almost all of last year, so we weren't able to start as early as we wanted, but the team there has done a tremendous amount of work, and we feel confident based on our discussions that we'll have the data from them available early second half of this year. And as for a company, that will be a tremendously positive readout and really solidify our movement into drug development. Something that's not on here that I think is important to talk about is our desire and our focus on getting into human clinical studies. We certainly will be doing that. We're exploring multiple opportunities, and we'll let the market know as we move that forward. But that's a very important thing for us to do. I've been developing drugs for 30 plus years, and there's a process we need to go through. And that process is human experience, demonstrating safety first and foremost, and then we'll demonstrate efficacy. We've got a great team that we're working with, and that's really helping us drive the program forward. As I mentioned, I've been in the biopharma space for 30 years. I've been a successful CEO of 5 public companies. We've had some very good exits. Shareholders have done very well, and I love the challenge and opportunity to create medicines and devices to help people and help patients. We have as Chief Scientific Officer, Masood is an expert. He has multiple very clear development successes in his background, and he's brought many drugs through FDA approval and clinical work. So his input is invaluable. And Brian is our CFO. He's been around the industry for 13 years in public and private companies and knows the Canadian market very well. And he allows us to move things forward in the Canadian market. John Gilbert's our exec chairman. John has got a long history in the emerging spaces of being hugely successful, starting when cannabis was raw and new, moving into psychedelic space. John has been at the forefront of that, and we're very, very happy to be working with John Leighton and Michael. They bring experience in multiple acquisitions, M&A, as well as successfully running companies. And we work together well, and we have the opportunity to continue to do that. I mentioned Dr. Mark Geyer. He's one of our scientific advisors. He is probably one of the grandfathers of psychedelic research and psychedelic medicine here in the United States, down in San Diego. He is a resource of information about the psychedelic space that you can't find in online searches. He was there. He was part of it. He developed a lot of the original thinking in the United States in the 60s, and we're thrilled to have him. Our newest advisor, Dr. Benjamin Kilmendi at Yale, is a great addition. He's heading up the Yale Psychedelic Science Group, a newly formed group, and we look forward to working with him and Yale as we move forward and initiate human studies. Elon Heyman is down in Australia. Australia is an important market for our company, and we think for psychedelics. They are, I think, at the forefront of allowing psychedelic research. And he's got direct experience in the psychedelic marketplace with MindMed Australia. And it will be also adding to our expertise in the area. And Bart Oates is a 3-time Super Bowl champion. All of you football fans will recognize him if you're old enough like me. He's heading up the NFL initiative on their side, and we look forward to working with Bart. Here's some numbers on the company. As you can see, we had about 200 million shares outstanding, a few stock options, and some warrants, total fully diluted. Market cap as of 4/6 was 33 million. I don't know where the stock is today, but we certainly, as mentioned earlier, we're trading on the pink sheets right now, but we will work to, and hopefully we'll be announcing a move to OTC shortly. So with that, I'll turn it back and hopefully get some Q&A going. I appreciate the chance and the opportunity to speak with everyone.
Thank you so much, Phillip. Yes, we do have some questions for you. So when do you anticipate receiving data from the University of Miami on your preclinical studies?
We're hoping, I don't want to get precise in the month, but even though we got a late start and Dr. Hoffer's team didn't get to go into Q4 the way they thought they would, I think we're going to see data sometime this summer, July or August at the latest.
Okay. And what are the next steps needed to initiate a human clinical trial?
That's a two-pronged question. First piece of the puzzle is to do studies in humans here, mostly in the under FDA guidance and FDA regulations. We need to file what's called an IND, an investigational new drug application. In order to do that, there's a whole series of things you need to do. One of them is to demonstrate safety in animal models and humans. So that's one of the things we'll be doing. We anticipate hopefully getting an IND up and running late this year, early next year, but that won't preclude us from getting a human study up and running in the next 6 months. And I think we'll have the opportunity to do that. And I'd look forward to updating everyone as we finalize our plans.
Perfect. A bit about the status of your nasal delivery system.
So the nasal delivery device is a unique opportunity we have. Nobody else that I know of is pursuing something like this. The science is there, and the science is very solid that intranasal delivery of not just what we're trying to do, but other therapeutics is a good way to do it. The problem with normal nasal delivery is if you just take a bottle of decongestant spray and squirt it up there, it either goes down your throat or comes back out your nose because it never gets high enough up into the sinus passages and sinus cavities. We decided to collaborate with an engineering group so that we could get a repeatable spray pattern and droplet density as well as droplet size so that we could deliver it where we wanted it to go so that it would stay there and be absorbed into the brain versus coming back down your throat and out your nose where it generally doesn't do any good. So we finished the first phase. We're moving into the second phase, and we would like to have a prototype device ready to go into human studies late this year.
Perfect. Sorry, so tell me a little bit about the current regulatory environment. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I think amazingly enough, and this is I think a testimony to the FDA and the Canadian authorities, European authorities, Aussie authorities, the regulatory people are opening up to the reality that these drugs, the psychedelic medicines, can have a major positive impact on patient outcomes across the board. If you look at depression, for instance, and depressive disease, there's been nothing new for 30 plus years. Everything that's come to market that you see on TV that's advertised as being new is just another take on the same old technology, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. That's it. There's really been nothing. The opportunity to exploit the medicinal outcomes and the medicinal benefit from a whole basket of medicines that over thousands and thousands of years have been successfully used in treating patients is out there. And I think that even with the pandemic taking the majority of the news flow and taking a huge amount of the FDA's attention, they, just from what they are doing and what their communications are, the regulatory agencies across the board are open to doing this. But the key is it has to be done the right way. They have rules, regs, and guidelines that you need to follow. That's what the team has been doing for years. Myself and Masood have brought probably 7 to 10 drugs to market from discovery. So we know the way to do it, and we have a good team to set that up and get it done. So I'm excited to be going to the FDA and the European and everyone else to get it done.
Perfect. Talk a little bit about VR. Expand a little bit about the information of how you're working with VR. Sure.
The whole concept behind the virtual reality guidance or having somebody there as a guide when the first exposure to a high dose psychedelic is, it's very unnerving. Patients report that the psychedelic experience, some of them enjoy it and love it and don't have an issue. Other patients need to have their guide with them. And the virtual reality allows the guide and the patient to go to a space that's safe, whatever the patient has identified as something they like, walking at the ocean, being in a field, flying in an airplane, whatever it might be. And it helps them allow the psychedelic to do what it does, and allows them to relax enough to talk about past events. And in PTSD, if the PTSD is a result of a severe trauma of some sort, even if it's a result of COVID, one of the key components to healing PTSD is a whole process of allowing the patients to socialize the idea with themselves and to be able to understand that the trauma has passed and that the trauma is no longer a threat, et cetera. And the VR allows them to do that with the help of a psychologist, or some other trained psychedelic guide. So I think it's going to be an important issue or an important opportunity for a lot of people. And I think that our idea is that we have that and we use the virtual reality to allow the patients their first exposure. But then as they get comfortable with it, spending a 4 to 8 hour commitment through a therapeutic session, it's going to be difficult. And you wouldn't want to do that on a repeat basis. One, financially, it's probably a problem for the insurance companies. And two, it's not the best model for developing a therapeutic pharmaceutical. And so we think that that's a great opportunity to start the patients, to get them rolling in the right direction towards healing. But then as they move forward in their healing process, to allow them to take their medication at home in lower doses. And so they're not having the psychiatric and the psychedelic impact.
That makes sense. So are there plans to evaluate M&A opportunities to possibly bring in revenue while you're conducting all this research?
Exactly, yes. Certainly we want to do that. We want to do that. We're looking at multiple opportunities. As you may know, there are, in any emerging space like this, there are thousands, literally, of companies doing hundreds of different things. And we're evaluating multiple opportunities on multiple fronts that would be beneficial to helping us build out our corporate capabilities and move our company forward, not only in light of research and development, but in light of revenue production. So we're looking at all aspects. On the revenue production side for the company, there's certainly opportunities that are available, and on the clinical research, drug discovery and development side, there are also opportunities that are very unique. And I just ask you to stay tuned, and we'll see what happens.
So one of our viewers is asking if you'd be interested in reaching north of the border and maybe partnering with the CFL. It seems that Canada is very progressive with these medical advancements.
Sure. Send me an email. We'll do it in a minute.
There you go.
Being in America, I never thought of the CFL, but I should have because of Doug Flutie.
There we go. Well, let's talk about the NFL. So what kind of strategic access to the NFL Alumni Association does Loeb have, and how does that help the company?
Well, this is very new. We just announced this maybe a month ago with that. And they have a commitment to helping retired players advance and move forward post NFL career. As you imagine, it's quite a change to going from being an NFL player to being a non-NFL player, and it's made more difficult by as a result of concussions. I don't know of any NFL player that hasn't had one concussions, and it's never uncommon to hear of players who have had 5 to 7 concussions. A lot of the times that post-concussive syndrome or traumatic brain injury results in players post-playing lives developing anything from Parkinson-like syndromes to severe depression to Alzheimer's-like syndromes at a very early age. We're very early in the discussions, but we think that we should be able to help those players out, and we think we should be able to partner with, and that's why we partnered with BART and the association, so that we can set up a program. And initially, I would hope that we could get clinical studies up and running and see what we can do, because it's all part of if not only helping the NFL, which is a fabulous thing to do, but our war fighters and veterans who have gone through the process of traumatic brain injury and concussion syndrome, as well as PTSD. We'll be targeting them as well.
Perfect. The question is $250,000 for Jilt's 3-month contract with Loeb seems like a high expenditure. Can you reassure us it's money well spent?
Yes, it's 100% money well spent. What we have to do, since this company, this time last year was a cannabis company, fully focused cannabis company moving forward, and we Loeb, through the interactions with Illusion, changing the name to Loeb late in last year, needed to emerge into a marketplace where there's a lot of noise and confusion. And what we wanted to do was to ensure that our story was told accurately, truthfully, and that our story got out to as many potential investors as possible. Obviously, I believe, and we believe, the company has a upside that is pretty well unmatched, and I believe we can get there. And so we wanted to let people know what we're doing and why we're doing it. And the best way to do that is to get help doing it. I can do these meetings, but these only reach a small segment of the investment population.
Phillip, the last question is, what are your biggest hurdles over the next 6 to 12 months, and how do you plan on getting over them?
Well, I think first, a big hurdle and why we're doing this is COVID. I think COVID has a potential to continue to rear its ugly head and hinder things we want to do. For instance, the study at University of Miami, it stopped us from initiating that when we wanted to. And there's other things that we've run into to cause that. So we'd like to make sure that we get through that. But the biggest hurdle of the hurdles you face as a drug development company: one, we need to be always adequately financed, and we're in good shape now. And two, we need to be able to advance our science such that we're always creating positive outcomes, or we're learning from what we're doing to create positive outcomes. And it's part of the drug discovery and development process. It's an iterative, action-oriented time where we're doing multiple things so that we can ensure that we get to the patients as quickly and ethically as possible. And that's our key. So, we have things to do that we know we need to do, and that's develop our initial combo of NAC and psilocybin. We want to tag on to that and follow that up with a different compound, and we'll be doing that. But also, you mentioned earlier, the M&A. We certainly want to take advantage of that. So it's a busy time, it's an exciting time, but I think if everyone keeps a watch on this and invests in this, they'll be very happy.
Thank you so much. Fantastic presentation. Very important company you have here. We look forward to following up with your updates in the future.
Thanks a bunch. I appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks for your time, Phillip. All right, everyone, remember, we are going to transition to the next presenter. So you're going to see a black screen for a brief moment, but we'll be right back. And if you're on that Apple device, hit that play button to launch the live presentation. We'll see you shortly.